join the team at sport-social.co.uk.
Hello, welcome back to the very last episode of the FPL Masterclass this season. I hope you guys have enjoyed all the tips and tricks that myself and Rob have been showing you over the... Well, Rob, I can't believe the season's nearly over, to be honest. Over the past 9 months. And look, there's been some highs, there's been some lows. Rob's sitting up very high up in his leagues. I've had a few up and down peaks and troughs this season, but I'm pretty happy at how I'm finishing, a strong finish. So here we are, Rob, the final 2 game weeks, or should we say maybe 3, because there is a double. And look, there's a lot to get through. And really now it's make or break. You either win your leagues or you blow it.
Yeah, FPL this year has definitely trumped lots of players. I've seen it this year where people have gone, I'll use the normal strategies. I won't kind of work around the metrics. I won't dig too deep. I'll have a guess here, there, and everywhere. And a year's gone by. That's okay. But FPL is getting trickier. I would not be surprised if next year they change some of the rules in terms of things like formations and stuff, because we've seen this year a complete collapse of the striker market. You know, strikers don't feature in the Premier League anymore with false nines, and yet in FPL you still have to pick your striker, or at least one in a game, where it feels like we'd be better off sometimes to have 6 midfielders, wouldn't it, or even 6 defenders. So those things might change, but I think it's been an interesting season, and hopefully here now we'll wrap up the last 3 games, even though it is 2 games weeks. As you said, there's a double game week to come. Not massively interested in the bigger picture of FPL, but we'll try and help you in your final weeks here so you can go win your leagues and at least have the bragging rights with your mates.
Absolutely. And guys, as always, give us a follow on at TF Masterclass. Give myself a follow on at Haider _ Rubbani, and give Rob a follow on at _Rob _B. Make sure to hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, because there's a lot of content over the summer. Obviously, Man United podcast, and there'll be a lot of player analysis shows, so make sure you do that. Let's start, Rob. And there's a comment here from Shersha saying he's on 96 points for this double game week. He has 4 players left to play in the North London derby tonight. That's Son, Saka, Nketiah, and Davis. So he's had a really good game week. I had a good game week as well, 94 points. I've still got Son to play. And look, you've still hit above the 50 to 60 point range that we say every single week. The average is 66. You've got 72 points, but you have still got Son to play, Saka, and Ramsdale. I think let's really drill into this, because Liverpool didn't hit the heights that, the key players didn't hit the heights that we expected. You can see that they blanked. You can see that Chelsea's players did really well. Reece James and Mason Mount, we both had them. And look, they did really well, especially yesterday against Leeds. And Alonso getting returns as well. It's interesting, actually. I'm looking at this now. We obviously were chatting off air, but apart from Cancelo, no other Manchester City players. That's very interesting. I had Foden, obviously, scored in that first game. Neither of us had Kevin De Bruyne. I mean, that was just unbelievable what he did yesterday as well. But no City players is interesting. So talk me through that as well, and talk me through your reasoning behind this team this game week.
Well, Foden had been in my team pretty much all season long. And the reason why I took him out was 1, because of his form, but 2, because of the Champions League. And before, obviously, Manchester City got unfortunately knocked out of that competition, they were a viable pick. Now, we saw, obviously, very recently, Kevin De Bruyne is just going to smash 4 goals in and kind of put his name forward for the final couple of weeks of the season. But I think you have to be just mindful of any team in the latter stages of the Champions League. So I kind of gambled and went with my Liverpool players, just in the sense of having fullbacks that get you production. Salah, who has been getting production over the season, but has gone completely flat. And then my other option was Chelsea. And why was that? It's because Chelsea were out the Champions League. Chelsea were just trying to solidify their position in the top 4, which obviously is something they're still trying to do. So that's really been my call. All season long, I've tried to have 2 or 3 City players in there. But it's not a hard and fast rule, but it's certainly the rule you start off at the start of the season. If you have 3 Liverpool players and 3 City players, then you're probably going to start better than most of the other teams around you in your leagues.
Rotation was a bit of a killer. We saw Salah on the bench for the second game. Liverpool have got a really strong squad now. It's almost for me, Rob, now when I look at those forward lines, they've now got Diaz, they've got Jota. I know Firmino's been out, but he sometimes plays as well. They've got Mane and Salah. Before, like at the moment, I would say Liverpool's options maybe rival Manchester City's in terms of quality as well, and in terms of rotation as well. So before, I always used to find Pep roulette was difficult, but you're almost seeing a bit of Klopp roulette now.
Totally, and this is a problem for FPL managers because one thing with Liverpool over the last 2 or 3 years, it's been pretty easy to predict their starting 11 in general. And even when they've been chasing Champions Leagues, they've not really rotated massively. They really haven't. But Diaz coming into the mix has changed their attack. And we've actually seen that Salah's been the guy that's gone and sat on the bench, whereas Mane now playing as the centre forward rather than playing on the left, and Firmino dropping out of the rotation a little bit more. Mane's gone through the middle and had an outrageous last few months of the season. He's done really, really well. Just looking at the numbers here overall, obviously the average there is 66, which is crazy low for a double game week. Crazy low. And that shows how much rotation there's been. That's been a huge impact with the Champions League final coming up for Liverpool. But just in general, teams kind of putting the brakes on. There's cup finals coming up. Obviously, that's something to think about as well as the FA Cup final. So there's lots of games still to go, even though it is the end of the campaign. You can see there the highest points total for someone who obviously just scored it with probably their De Bruyne as captain or something like that. 209 points for the double game week. Normally a double game week, you would see the average way above 100. Normally like kind of 100, 110, 120, which I think we've all kind of done in our own double game weeks in recent months. This week, 66. But that doesn't matter because it's about the average. If you stay above the average, then again, if you're at the top of your league, you should be there or thereabouts.
Absolutely. Let's move on now to the graphic from FPL Scout. As always, we go through this to show which teams have the easiest fixtures, which is at the top. And then at the bottom, the team at the bottom has the most difficult. Well, you can see United are blanking anyway, and they're not playing for a couple of weeks now. So, Rob, let's go through this because there is another double game week. And you can see at the top, Leicester have got Watford, Chelsea, and Southampton. You've got Burnley as well. You've got Tottenham, Villa, Newcastle. Palace have Villa, Everton, United. Everton have Brentford, Palace, and Arsenal. And Villa also have Palace, Burnley, and Manchester City. So looking at this here, I'm looking at these double game weeks, and I'm not looking. This week was a bit nicer, wasn't it? We saw some good fixtures, but I'm not looking at any team that's standing out and saying, you've got really good fixtures here.
No, they're not massively attractive at all. So I think this double game week is a little bit of a kind of false dawn. There are opportunities in there, and we will go through 2 or 3 of the players that you could look at. But for instance, if you look at someone like Matty Cash, who's done really well at Aston Villa, you might look at this run and go, Palace, yeah. Burnley, yeah. City final day, no. So that's a problem, isn't it? And I think when you look at the teams up there who've got this big treble on here from game week 37 and 38, Leicester season over already, maybe. Are they on holiday? Burnley still fighting. Everton still fighting. So I would lean towards clubs that are still trying to do something. So Burnley and Everton are the obvious ones there. Crystal Palace, they got Man United last day of the season. They'll probably score 10 against us. But do you know how it goes? So I think when you're looking at opportunities here, there'll be people kind of obviously looking at the big clubs, and we will still talk about big club players. We're going to talk about a scenario here about maybe taking out the prime candidate for FPL this season and going on a slightly different route for the last 2 game weeks. But you should keep your eye on maybe the 1 or 2 opportunities from those clubs who are threatened by relegation.
Comment here, Rob, from Shersha saying the issue with the upcoming week is the fact that a lot of the teams who have 2 games play each other at least once.
And that's a problem. So straight away, you look at that and you shy away, don't you? So this is the whole thing about using the information we've got on hand and not trying to be too clever. So I think quite often with double game weeks, what people do is they just get a little bit too clever. They try and change everything, and they just want to see on their grid double game week, double game week, double game week with every player. And then you have something like this last week. So people would have gone big on the City and Liverpool contingents this week. One or two of those players has helped you. But then you look at Liverpool's lot, they've not helped you at all. They've not helped me, certainly not. But you would have still gone for them looking at the form book. So it's just a case now, I think, of kind of tightening up everything and seeing if you can kind of just bleed these last 2 weeks.
Absolutely. So the main topic for this week is it time to sell Salah? Look, we've got 2 game weeks left. Rob, his form, we were talking off air, it has been patchy since he's come back from the AFCON. Look, he's played a lot of football this year. He's also been very, very good. I mean, let's not forget how good he was in that first half of the season before he went. He was playing at a level that, probably hadn't seen since Ronaldo in terms of goal scoring when Ronaldo was here back in 2008. Not the current Ronaldo. But having a look at his last sort of 8 games or so, he's got about 3 goals and 2 assists. Obviously, you can see he got a big return against Manchester United. Is it time now? Maybe, look, he's owned by 57.8%, but is it time to look and maybe cash in on him and go towards a De Bruyne or someone like that? Especially if City go and win next week pretty convincingly. I mean, the last game of the season could be a bit of a dead rubber with, Liverpool resting players for the Champions League.
And this is the problem. Liverpool are still fighting for other trophies. And it's not that the Premier League has slipped away from them completely. They will definitely be trying to put it in for the last few games to try and win those matches. It's just depending on what Klopp's mindset is, especially now he's got a differential in Luis Diaz. So that changes everything, doesn't it? Because if there was no Luis Diaz coming in mid-season in the January window, this would probably be pretty easy. You'd stick with Salah. You wouldn't even think about it. But Diaz's form is too good. Jota always scores goals when he's picked. And Firmino, I think, is back in and around the squad. So there is options to rotate for Liverpool. And I really do think that, say they slip in the next game and City wrap the title up and it's all over, you will not see any of Liverpool's premium players playing the last game of the season. They'll take it on the chin. They'll bring some of the kids in. They'll rotate for the last game of the season, and they'll give all their players the rest they need for the cup match. So that's how it goes. Champions League will become the priority. It already probably is, and Salah will be looking one eye towards Real Madrid. So I think that the time has come to sell Salah. We've said throughout the season, don't do it, hold fire, hold fire. And I think overall, Salah has performed for us. Looking at the ICT rankings, overall ICT rank, number 1 out of 734. Midfield ranking, number 1 out of 307. Threat, number 1 out of 307. 1 for influence out of 307. Mohamed Salah's done well. So let's not kind of do any revisionism and say that he's not done well. But on the right-hand side, we've got his form guide. And as you can see there, in kind of as the columns go down, it's actually had minutes taken away. He's only played 18 minutes the last match. Then he had a day off the day before that, 21 minutes. Still playing a few 90 minutes, but then coming off after an hour mark. I remember that match against Watford, and he wasn't very happy. And then before that, at Arsenal, only played 34 minutes. That has definitely impacted his form. So we've got to a point here where the question is, Haider, is there a better option than Salah? And we're going to give you that answer now.
Just, this is not really linked to FPL, Rob, but, he hasn't signed a new contract. He hasn't, he hasn't committed his future. Do you think that might be playing into it as well? Maybe Klopp's, not playing as much. Maybe he's looking towards a future. Could we possibly see a season which almost seems a bit unfathomable now, because he's always that first, since he's come into the Premier League, obviously he came in and no one thought he'd do as well as he did. And then in that first game, I think he scored a hat-trick against Watford, his first ever game. But could we be going into a season possibly next season without Mo Salah in FPL?
I think there is a very good chance that Mo Salah will lead Liverpool this summer. I'll say that. I don't think it has anything to do with the current form or FPL as we're talking about.
The money, isn't it, really?
In context. It's not the money. It's the fact that Salah wants to win elsewhere and do other stuff. It's just all it is. He's going to get paid wherever he goes, Haider. Literally any team he plays for.
He's a world-class player.
He's going to get this is the thing. Liverpool will pay him the money. There's no doubt about it. Liverpool offer it. He just decides if he wants to stay at Liverpool. He's done it all at Liverpool. That's just the bottom line, isn't it? If he wins a Champions League, what's the best gift to give Liverpool fans to leave than the Champions League? I don't think he'll be thinking the following year, let's try and win the Champions League again with Liverpool. He might well do, he might still want to do that, but I do think that, I've been saying it all year, haven't I? I said it to you, I think, at the start of the season, that I think Mohamed Salah will leave the football club because I think that's the noises that are coming out of his camp. And, that's how it will be going forward. But I just think for these final weeks, it's Diaz that's the problem and Jota. They're the problems because it now allows Salah to be rested in a way that he's never been rested before. And Mane's form through the middle, he's the guy playing the false nine. Salah doesn't really play the false nine very well. He can do it, but he doesn't do it for Liverpool.
Coming off the right,
He's better coming off the right. So if you're going to play, if you're going to have wingers or you're going to have players playing in the wide areas, Diaz can go in at either side. Jota can come in. Jota can go through the middle. Means Mane can go left. You've got options. And I think that's been the big issue in terms of Salah's numbers for the last 10 weeks.
Absolutely. Well, look, they got a great replacement, unfortunately, Luis Diaz, who looks a great player. But let's talk about the options, Rob, if you are going to sell Salah. So this is your team with Salah in it. Am I correct? So
that's just the current team.
That's the current squad. Look, he's cost a lot of money. You've still got money in the bank as well. So you actually have quite a few options. So we're going to move on to the first option. So that's to sell Salah, bring in Kevin De Bruyne, and bring in Nketiah. And Nketiah is a really interesting one because we were just talking off air and I said, I really don't like the strikers this year. I know Lukaku's now slowly bagging a few goals here and there, but he has not performed. Ronaldo scored goals. He scored in bursts. Again, he's very expensive. There's better premiums out there. And, Broja was doing well for a certain amount of time. Pukki scored a few goals. I've had him in. He's done absolutely nothing. Antonio was scoring quite a few goals as well. So Nketiah has now emerged and he's only 5.6. He's a really good differential option now, isn't he?
He is. And it's quite interesting because what you're doing here with Salah, that if you take Salah out and you've got the 2 free transfers like I've saved, I deliberately saved them for this week because I felt that I would need to make 2 changes to kind of maximize my numbers. De Bruyne's an easy choice simply because City are after the title. Everything's focused on winning the Premier League. And De Bruyne showed in the last game, he's lethal. He's going to push his team over the line. But I think with Nketiah, I'm really disappointed I didn't buy him weeks ago. Now, I didn't buy him weeks ago for 2 reasons. One, I wasn't sure about Arsenal's run, especially running into teams like Tottenham, bigger clubs, Liverpool. They did, they've done well, obviously, over the previous weeks. And Nketiah, of course, the issue was, would he play when Lacazette was fit? And the answer, of course, to that is yes, he has played. But that was a surprise, wasn't it? It really didn't feel like that would carry on like that. Arsenal fans might tell you something different. But that was always the risk. So I think now in Nketiah, the last 2 weeks, especially how Dennis is injured and obviously Watford are relegated, there's an opportunity there to bring in someone of around that value. But if you're still thinking De Bruyne +1 or a +1 striker here, there are other options. It's just the money, making the money work, Haider. This option here with De Bruyne and Nketiah would still give me £2.4 million left in the bank, which means on the final day, if I have 3 players who break their leg for whatever reason this week, I have still got money to make a dramatic change and a dramatic move.
Absolutely. Rob, we're going to bring up a question here from Sheshar saying, what advice would you give for someone who's planning to free hit?
To use the free hit, I think the thing is, and we were talking about this, weren't we, Haider? Because obviously you've got your wild card still to use. If you're at the stage
and
of the season,
bench boost,
and you've got chips, if you've still got chips left, it's not unheard of that people save chips as late as they can in the season. But I think when you've got either your free hit or you've got your wild card, they're becoming effectively the same thing, really. So some people with their free hit will be going, let me exploit the double game week. That's what they'll be feeling. Let me go for Villa players. Let me go for Everton. Let me go for Burnley. And that free hit will probably ruin your week. You'll probably do it and be really hugely disappointed. My advice would be stick with what you know. Look at the form book. Stick with the form players. I stuck with those Chelsea players there, Alonso, James and Mount. And Mount didn't play the first game. I think Alonso got 0. The second came off after 45 minutes and James got 2. And then the second game week, and the second on the double, they all got double points. So stick with what you know because you generally will be rewarded. Be careful not to over-tinker. But I think these scenarios we're talking about here with Salah, this all plays into that because you might want to drop Salah, say, for 1 game and try De Bruyne, and then bring Salah back for the final game and get rid of De Bruyne. So it depends how you feel about the actual matchups.
Absolutely. Let's move on now to striking options. So what we have here on the screen is striking options from top to bottom in terms of who's in the best form. So Gabriel Jesus has been in very, very good form. And you got Ronaldo there as well. And Nketiah's topping the charts. Welbeck, quite surprising, but he's doing very well. Richarlison, I want to pick him out, Rob, actually, because he's the one that stands out to me. I'll tell you why. Because Everton have a lot of fixtures left. They have picked up a little bit of form now. I think they're unbeaten in 2 or 3 games. And he is their main source of goals, really, to be honest with you. I know Mikolenko, who I brought in, and I'm very happy with that little punt that I took. And, he got me a goal and a clean sheet over the 2 double game week. But Richarlison is the goal threat. And I believe he takes penalties, if I'm correct. So he's an interesting one because I see a lot of people have Watkins, and Watkins looks like he might be a doubt. He probably will play. But going up and down that list, Ings has scored a few goals recently. Lukaku I wouldn't touch. Joelinton plays in midfield now. Weghorst, probably not. I've got Pookie in there. Surprisingly, done nothing for me, or not surprisingly, since I brought him in. So I'm looking at 2 really, Richarlison and Nketiah, if I am looking to bring in a striker this week.
Yeah, this is now about trying to massage your numbers in terms of value. So over the season, we've absolutely preached that you go bottom dollar value, go low as possible because there's nothing in the striker market. But going into the last 2 weeks, you kind of want to do a little bit of business to kind of get you there. So Nketiah, I think, is the obvious one. He's number 3 there in the form guide. Jesus at the top at 8.6. Obviously, his value's gone up the last 2 or 3 weeks. What happened in the last Man City game? He didn't play a minute. So this is the problem. So you need to kind of be very aware of those clubs where players might just do these cameos and be in and out. So I think Richarlison, definitely of outside of Nketiah, definitely the best choice. But then we have to decide whether Everton, say, in game week 37, get over the hump and are free of relegation, and then game week 38 are on holiday. So that's a problem. So you have to weigh up all of these things. I think a little wild card off this bunch here is one of my old perennials, and that is Danny Ings. So Watkins injured there. Danny Ings kind of become the second striker at Watford under Steven Gerrard. Sat on the bench a fair bit, but when he has played recently, looks quite good. So he might be someone who plays you 3 games and scores you 6 goals. You never know, do you, with Danny Ings? He's that kind of explosive player. So you've got options there. Weghorst as well. They're Burnley trying to fight for their lives to stay in the Premier League. I think Vidra's injured, so that's a problem there. But overall, when you look at the striking options, it's not great, is it? Still, when you look at it, you're not going to go Ronaldo because the United season is over. But when you look at everyone else, you don't look at Danny Welbeck and think, well, he will definitely score in the last 2 weeks. You don't really look at Joelinton and think, yeah, he'll definitely score. Pookie, as you said, is one and done, and he's out, and that's the end of Norwich. They're out the league once again. So it kind of does narrow it down, doesn't it? I think it's an Nketiah. But then, of course, if Arsenal do beat Tottenham tonight, and we are doing this show on a Thursday night when the North London derby is about to be on, if Arsenal win that,
they got top 4.
Arsenal are top 4. So then does that mean Arsenal go on holiday for the last 2 weeks? So hold your fire. Even though you're watching this show and we're going to give you all the tips and all the rounded bits, do your changes literally 2 hours before the deadline. Yeah. I think the first game is a Sunday. It's a Sunday this week. So you've got the weekend, you've got Friday and Saturday to mull over it and keep watching our show. Maybe take some tips, write down some bits and pieces and find the correct combination.
Absolutely. Rob, a question here from Jeff saying, would you swap Pookie for Welbeck?
I think if you just had a random transfer and you didn't want to change anyone else, then yes. But at the same time, if you've got Pookie and you don't want to do business in your midfield or your defence or even as your goalkeeper, then just put Pookie at the end of your bench because he's one of those players that might score a goal in the final game. He might get a penalty. Norwich might have a last hurrah as they're going down once more. You do see that quite often. But I don't know. I don't think Danny Welbeck, for me, in terms of goal scoring, he's okay, isn't he? He's done well at Brighton. There's no doubt about that in the last few months. But again, gets the odd injury here and there. You might find that he doesn't feature for whatever reason. I wouldn't say it was a stonewall choice that I would make.
I just don't think I don't see that upside, I think they're very similar sort of profile in terms of one of them could score one week, one of them couldn't. It doesn't move the needle enough for me. So
Not at
you
all.
could have either one of them, and I just think but I don't know. I just
Horses for courses.
Yeah,
definitely.
that's what I was looking for. I don't see the big difference between the two. But now we're going to talk about a different option, Rob. So in this option, you brought in Harry Kane and Kulusevski. Kulusevski's been fantastic. I've really enjoyed watching him play. I liked watching him when he was, at Parma on loan from Atalanta. Then he moved to Juventus, and it really didn't work out for him. And he's rejuvenated under Antonio Conte. And he's a big reason, Rob, why Spurs are where they are and could potentially be Champions League as well. Because Spurs were relying a lot on Son and Kane, but now there's a third threat in that front line for Tottenham, and teams struggle. And Kulusevski's creative; he's scoring goals. He sort of cuts in, he drifts in. So he's a really fantastic player. But I think the key here we're looking at is Harry Kane, because if you are getting rid of Salah, Kane is obviously an obvious option to bring in. Looking at his form here on the right-hand side as well. Look, overall, he's got 13 goals and 10 assists. He's got into double digits for both again. After a slow start, he's barring the Villa game where he got 3 assists and he had the goal against Leicester. He hasn't really, and then you got the Arsenal game there. He hasn't played there yet, but he hasn't really been firing and scoring a lot of goals. So my question to you today is, because I'm looking and I'm thinking, Harry Kane, I'm looking at the fixtures. They've got nice fixtures. They've got Burnley, I believe, haven't they, and Norwich. So trebling up on Spurs makes a lot of sense to me.
I think the fact that Spurs have got this wonderful double up that allows you to kind of go all out with Spurs in terms of an attacking sense. This was my kind of favourite option. So when I was thinking about taking Salah out, this was the first thing I thought about. I thought Kane, Kulusevski, because I've already got Son. I'm tempted by the whole Burnley option and Norwich. Obviously, we talked about players being on holiday. Even if Spurs mess it up tonight in the North London derby and Arsenal get that 4th place, Spurs are going to want to finish strongly. Different reasons, isn't there? We talked about Nketiah a minute ago. Nketiah is also in the shop window, out of contract. He wants to prove himself. But it might be a case that he's rotated out of the formation if Arsenal get top 4, and you might find that he goes in a different formation up top, might bring back Lacazette, might do something different in terms of Arteta. But I think you're going to see that Kulusevski and Kane are almost definitely going to play with Son, whatever happens. And it's just a double up made in heaven. This is the perfect double up for strikers. So Kulusevski has fallen out of form in recent weeks, as we've seen Harry Kane has as well. Harry Kane's got a 6 there in terms of points. We're against Leicester. But before that, 2 against Brighton, 2 against Brentford, 2 against Liverpool. But overall, Harry Kane has been highly involved in and around the penalty box. And that's what I'm looking at. So he's involved, I do think, a little bit like De Bruyne the other night. De Bruyne hasn't scored hardly any goals this season, really. I think he's scored 14 up to then. And now he's up to 18, just like that. So I think Harry Kane, in terms of value for him at 12.4, is good business. But it's the double again, isn't it, Haider? It's about who do you bring in with him. And Kulusevski at 6.3 still allows me to have £1.3 million in the bank for next week, just in case if there's an injury and I need to make a last minute change.
All right, 6.3 is an absolute steal for the
absolutely
the returns that you're getting. I would agree with that. I actually took him out. I played sort of roulette though throughout the season with Saka, Mount, and Kulusevski. Since Kulusevski came in, but I had Saka and I took him out. I had Mount this week. I don't have Saka anymore. I know Saka got returns against United, which was very frustrating. So I have rotated a little bit there. Foden's another player that I've been rotating in and out. But I'm looking at Kulusevski and I'm looking at Foden for me, and I'm thinking Foden got me a goal a couple, the last game week, obviously not the game recently. Maybe it's time to take him out, bring Kulusevski in, and I will also have 1 point, maybe 2 or 3 million to play with. And do what I need to do.
See, I think next year, see if they allow changes with formation, saying there about playing 5-4-1 or having to include a striker, I might be tempted now to not go for Kane and to play those 5 defenders at the back with 5 midfielders and no striker. Now, I would prefer to do that, and then I might have stuck with Salah. So I might have just gone, no, I'm not going to do that. I haven't got a lot of money. I don't need to make a big change. I'm just going to stick with it. I might take Ramsdale out and go for one of the goalkeepers who've got 3 games left and do something like that. But that's not something I can afford to do as it stands. I'm trying to maximize and use the cash I've got to get the best players possible. But I think at the moment, we'll see again what happens with the North London derby. Harry Kane might have an absolute stormer. So then suddenly Kane becomes the natural option. Or Harry Kane might twist his ankle and we might all go, probably not going to play another game this season now, so let's not do that transfer. You've got 2 really good options there, I think, with Kane and De Bruyne, and then there's plenty of really good midfield options, or if you need to bring in a budget striker, there are people you can go and get.
Absolutely. And I believe that is the last slide, and that is the last, the last show of the season, Rob. So what are your tips sort of going into the next couple of last 2 game weeks, and also what are your sort of takeaways from this season as well? Because I think that's important to discuss, because you've been very consistent in terms of every single week. You're in top 0.5%. You've done very, very well. I found myself going up and down, but I think for next season, I'll be a lot more sort of, measured, less tinkering, etc. But what would be your sort of, your lesson for the FPL players over the past season?
Well, the reason why we said we'd do this show, and I've been doing FPL articles for years and writing about fantasy football and kind of how to read the metrics and how to actually do the game. We wanted to do this show to kind of explain some of that and give people a barometer as to what you do week to week. Because I think what you find with FPL, and we've seen it with friends of ours and colleagues and whatnot, everyone goes a bit mad, don't they? A bit wild. I want to change 6 players this week. I'm just going to get rid of all those points and mess it up. That is not the way to win FPL. So if you're at that stage now in your leagues where you're mid-table, it's over, it's finished. It's all a little bit Manchester United, isn't it? There's nothing else to kind of do. You just turn up, take money and leave. And I think with FPL, for a lot of people, the season is over, isn't it? So what you're trying to do now is exploit these last matchups. For us, in terms of kind of hints and tips, I was going to say for next season as well, let's see how much Haaland's going to be worth, because I think Haaland could well be the super premium next season. However, he might also be the one that holds people back, because people will maybe spend incredible money on him, 14 million maybe or something crazy, to go and get him, and then miss out on all these brilliant mid-range players. And we've seen it this year. This season has been about the mid-range player. And you can see on my team at the end there, if you could bring that back up, Haider, the last slide, and I said this would be the potentially my last game week changes. We're looking at who's actually in the team. You can see that the team has had premium defenders with mid-range midfielders. Saka, 6.6. Mount, 7.6. Kulusevski said bring him back in, who I did have at one point, but then sold, 6.3. And even there, Dewsbury there at 4.4. He's just, again, a little bit of filler, but allows me to have Son, allowed me to have Salah all season long, allowed me to have budget attackers. Keep hold of that next season. The formula doesn't change too much, but try and make sure that the mid-range is really strong in your team. And I think the other thing, Haider, the big takeaway, is that premium defenders are a must now. In years gone by, I'd have gone 5 defenders of 4.5, 4.5, 5.5, 4.5, 4.5 across the board to maximize my attacking talent. But the way City and Liverpool get clean sheets and attacking returns, and Chelsea, who's talking about Alonso and James, goal scorers, you've got to do it, haven't you? Got to get these players in your team somehow. So that will be the first thing I think for next season, is to make sure that your defense is as strong as possible. But also the last few weeks now, look for the clean sheets and look for where you can actually maximize on teams who are still desperate to get those clean sheets to either stay up or to win a title.
Absolutely. And guys, look, thanks for your support during the season. It's been fantastic. Shah saying here, my best FPL season, and 90% of the credit goes to you guys. Credit goes to Rob. Rob sits there, he plans all the shows out, for hours, and that's why he's sitting where he is. And I'm just here to show my pretty face. So, look, guys, as always, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, give us a follow on at TF Masterclass. Give myself a follow on at Haider_Rubbani. Give Rob a follow at _Rob_B. Make sure you're checking out all the masterclass content and all the player analysis shows. United are ramping up, aren't they, Rob, in terms of transfers and targets. I'm actually going to let you give a little snippet. obviously what we're going to be doing over the summer, because there's a lot of exciting stuff coming, and we're going to be building and getting better for next season in terms of our quality and our content.
Yeah, we want to kind of revamp loads of stuff and push it forward and take on now a lot of the kind of feedback that we've had from our audience and from professionals in the industry, and just trying to kind of tighten things up a little bit and do something different. So over the summer, you're going to see a ton of player shows. You'll have seen, obviously, on our channel on the Masterclass that we did that, obviously, going at the start of the season and in the transfer windows, and have been hugely popular. This is going to be a historic transfer window for Manchester United. So we're going to be talking about all sorts of talent in literally every position you can think of. It's not new that Man United get linked to 1 million players. Ed Woodward once said Man United have been linked to 800 players in this transfer window, and he's not wrong. So this is the way it's going to go. So we're going to talk about all of that for you. But then, of course, going into the new season, we'll be doing our normal tactical shows and extra bits that we can. Please make suggestions to us if there's things you want to see and want to see us do that you don't see in other places, or there's something you think we do really well and you want to see more of it. Tell us. We're happy to have the feedback. I'm always open to constructive criticism. We've got no problem people in our comments kind of telling us what we should be doing, like we want you to do this. No problem with that. Tell us on Twitter. Tell us across our socials. And we'll try and deliver you something unique throughout the summer and into next season.
Absolutely. Guys, as always, make sure you check out all the other content we've done. We have the recent masterclass myself and Rob did, what went wrong against Brighton. We also did one called #TheProcess, what Ten Hag has to do to change things. It's great to see Ten Hag actually has won the title as well. Did it in style as well with a 5-0 win with Ajax. And it was great to see the under-18s, Rob, win that FA Youth Cup final. I really can't wait to see Garnacho, and I hope we see a little bit more of him. He's probably, a little bit away from the first team, but you never know.
Yeah, I think a few of them will make it through into the first kind of Ten Hag squad going into pre-season. But I think the most exciting thing, we're talking about real-term things happening, is that today, on Thursday, was the first meeting in face-to-face between Manchester United and Erik Ten Hag in Amsterdam.
Yeah.
It's the first time they've met to properly iron out things that they want to do going forward in terms of business. Now, I don't believe that's the first time they've ever spoken. It isn't. They've been talking about transfer targets ever since Ten Hag had his first few interviews. So this has been an ongoing thing. But today was the first day, I think, where they've sat down and gone, we want this player. We'll go to that club tomorrow and the day after and the day after, and we're now going to pursue certain talent. So whatever way you look at it, whether you're high on Manchester United or low on them, or whether you're all right with the Glazers or not all right with the Glazers or whatever, Manchester United are going to spend a ton of money in the next few weeks, and you're going to see brand new faces. And I think we all need that at this football club. This is not a Man United show, but of course, most of our audience are Manchester United supporters. And we will be going through all of that with a fine-tooth comb for you as the weeks go ahead. Also, obviously, look out for my other show, The Promised Land, we do for 90 Min. And we'll be having all sorts of stuff there. That will still be running throughout the summer twice a week. Goes out on Tuesdays and Fridays. So if you could subscribe to that, that would be fantastic. But you'll also see plenty of masterclass products now in the next few weeks.
Absolutely. And look, guys, good luck. Massive good luck. Hopefully you'll win your leagues, and we'll see you next season.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.